Hi everyone. Again, my name's Jane Orberg. As Krista mentioned, I am the representation coordinator at the AMC, amongst other things. This means that I manage and assess the representation applications and the reviews. I'm also actually the person that you will talk to about representation if you want to find out more, if you want to discuss your application. I feel so lucky to get to have so many great chats with artists like yourselves about your work, what you do, and how AMC fits into that picture. So if you are unsure about any of this, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm going to reference our representation policy a few times in this talk, and I just want to let you know that it is not a giant dry tome like a policy kind of gives that an impression. Please don't be scared of it. It has all of the information that you'll need when applying. So if you want to go back to any of the details that I mentioned here, the policy is your first port of call. And you can download the PDF of it from our website from the About Representation page. So a quick overview about what I'm going to be chatting about today. A little bit of context about the AMC, the benefits of representation with AMC, how to actually become represented. I'll be going through our eligibility criteria through in detail. And then we'll have a little bit of time for questions at the end. I know a couple of you submitted questions when you registered, which is great. So I'll answer those and then any questions that come up. If you do have questions that come up during the talk, just pop them in the chat and I'll try and make sure I get to them at the end. So about the AMC. The AMC, if you are not already familiar, the AMC houses and curates the most comprehensive catalogue of Australian music. It is a living collection of scores, recordings, research papers, teaching kits, classroom materials, recordings, videos, and other media. The catalogue is also an interconnected web. It connects works to performers, commissioners, funding bodies, calendar events, venues, prizes and awards, and instrumentation categories. We aim to make a lot of pathways to explore the collection, which is really so that AMC members can discover and connect to artists, you lovely folks, and your work. You might already be a member with AMC, so I thought it might be worth just going over what the difference is between being an AMC member and being an AMC represented artist. Being an AMC member means you have signed up on our website and you have benefits such as access to our digital library collection, a 10% discount when purchasing from the AMC shop, access to our opportunities listings, and the ability to nominate in the Art Music Awards. Having artist representation, by contrast, means being included in the AMC catalogue itself and having access to our AMC artist services. We represent a wide range of artists creating work in genres such as art music, contemporary classical, jazz, improvisation, screen, experimental, multimedia, dramatic, installation, and sound art. Australia has such a vibrant music community that really pushes a lot of boundaries and expands practices. This is such an exciting part of working with this community, and we're always working to adapt as it transforms and expands. We also represent artists who work in educational contexts, whose work is used in teaching music. The biggest benefit for artist representation is inclusion in our catalogue, making your work, your sheet music, your recordings, your information accessible so that performers can discover your work and buy scores to program performances, researchers and broadcasters can access information about you and your works, educators and students can discover and learn about your work. AMC's website does perform a different function to an artist's solo website, which is still a crucial part of presenting yourself to the public. Our website is a central place that provides access and information that is really connected to other artists, other works, events, and articles. The AMC website and resources are a way for people to discover, to listen to buy, to borrow, to perform, to learn about, and to deepen their understanding of your work. So let's go through some of the AMC's artist services more specifically. AMC artists have an AMC profile. So we host a biography and a photo on a profile of you that connects to all of the works and performances you're involved in our collection. This gives people important context to who you are as an artist and the work that you do. It means documentation of your work. So this is adding information about your work, such as year, instrumentation, the different versions, program notes, commissioning details, dedication details, subjects, and related works. We can link to online videos, articles, and analysis. All of this provides, performers, students, researchers, library members, the crucial pieces of information and context for your pieces. Documentation of past and future performances. So the AMC calendar is a source of information about upcoming performances of Australian music. Now, the calendar itself is actually open for anyone to submit to, so you don't need to be represented yet to submit to the calendar. It just needs to involve a performance of music by an Australian artist. As a represented artist, however, you can also document past performances of works as well. And this history of performances and also the performers connected to the work is really great for creating those new connections for discovery in our collection. You'll have access to our in-house publishing services. So we sell scores and performance parts. Our sheet music is available in both physical format as print-on-demand bound scores and as digital PDFs available for immediate download for customers. Sheet music can mean a score in the traditional sense, but it can also mean a lead sheet, a cue score for screenworks, a text-based instructional score, or a graphic score. We also sell electronics parts, such as like a pre-recorded track or an electronics patch that performers will need in order to perform your work, to just really facilitate that performance to kind of happen as easily as possible. You'll have access to our hire of parts services. So for larger ensemble works, we actually, instead of selling the parts, we hire part sets, which facilitates performances by orchestras. So that's ranging from the major state orchestras to community and youth orchestras. You will receive royalties from the sales and hires of your work. So when we sell your music through our website or hire parts to a large ensemble, you receive part of that price. The current rates can be found in our royalty policy, which is online. It's on our About Representation page on the AMC website. So you can kind of have access to that whenever you want to have a look at what the royalty rates are and how they work. But as a quick overview of some of the kind of key points, you get 50% of the sale price of digital scores or digital performance parts. You get 25% of the sale price of physical scores that we print on demand, 15% of the sale price of physical performance parts, and 65% of the hire fee for hire of part sets. So this is quite a competitive royalty rate for selling your music through our services. Inclusion of your works and materials in our library collection. So we include scores, not performance parts, in our digital library collection, which is available for all AMC members. These downloads are secured with big, large watermarks over the entire score. The PDFs have expiry dates and they all have purchase links at the bottom of them so that we can facilitate someone purchasing the score if they then wish to perform it. Including your recordings in our library collection. So we also have a collection of recording CDs, and we also document digital releases. So this can include commercial releases of your music, but also live recordings or unreleased or archival recordings. Recordings can be incredibly useful for performers, conductors, researchers, educators, students, and broadcast programmers. Even just having a rehearsal recording can be a really helpful addition to your work's documentation. And the last one on this list I'll speak about is the inclusion in relevant repertoire lists. So our amazing education specialist, Dr. Joanna Dramatis, uses materials in our catalogue to inform education resources and also to compile lists for members, such as our HSC and VCE lists, which is a curated selection of music for solo instruments that would be appropriate for these students to use in their exams. There's lists for school orchestras and for concert bands. The lists that we curate are always expanding as we continue to develop resources to help different groups access and explore Australian music. A few kind of key notes to kind of at the end of this section is that in terms of selling your music through our in-house publishing services, you keep your copyright. So this is super important. You keep your copyright and control over your work stays with you. We are not a traditional publisher in the sense that you assign rights for your works to. Instead, we work with a non-exclusive license to reproduce your music for sale and for hire, paying you a percentage of the sale or hire price. So the non-exclusive license also means that you are not locked into exclusivity with us. If you have works that are already published or your works become published in the future while you're represented with us, you can still document information about the works and the scores with us, even have the scores in our library. How it is documented and if it can be sold through our website will differ depending on the specific arrangement that you have with a publisher. We do have some relationships with some major sheet music publishers, which means we can reproduce some of the published scores under license, but this is not across the board. The score material, if you are published, the score materials then need to come from them, with the royalties also going to the publisher, who then passes on a pre-agreed amount to you. So it does take a little bit extra time to kind of have things become available, and you'll get a smaller part of the sale price, but it is possible. If we can't sell the music, then and you've provided us with information about where to purchase it, that does then mean we can answer inquiries we receive about your works. So how to become an AMC represented artist? AMC has two categories of artist representation: associate representation and full representation. Associate representation is offered through application, and works by associate artists must be eligible to be lodged in the AMC catalogue, sorry. I will go through that eligibility criteria a bit later on. It is the same list for the application as it is for lodging works. So it's not two separate eligibility criteria you need to keep in mind. When you have full representation, all of your works are eligible to be lodged in the AMC catalogue. Full representation is offered by periodic review of all of the AMC associate artists. The key thing that is looked at in the review is submissions through our artist portals and activity on our platform. So if you're an associate artist wondering how to be offered full representation, your main focus is going to be on lodging all eligible works that you have created. And so that means information, scores, performance parts, recordings, or performance details. In order to be eligible for AMC artist representation, you must either be an Australian citizen, a former Australian citizen, or have had permanent residence in Australia for at least 12 months. Having dual citizenship with another country is fine. I think that there was one of the registration questions was about dual citizenship. That's totally fine. And an Australian citizen living in another country is also fine. You will also need to have a current financial membership with the AMC. And I will note here that if you are experiencing financial hardship, please do contact us about membership options for you. So you meet these conditions and you're looking at becoming represented. You'll be applying for associate representation. The application form is always open. So if there's a good time for you to sit down and do it, it will be there. The applications are assessed twice a year. So there's just a cutoff date for assessing in each round. The cutoff dates are 30th of May. So that is on this Thursday. And the 30th of November. So you just need to get it in by the end of that day in order to be assessed in that round. If you are eligible, you'll be offered associate representation and you'll sign a license with us. You can then lodge eligible works in the catalogue, access all of our artist services, and be considered in the review for full representation. So the actual application process. Our application is based on community recognition of your work, rather than us organising panels that are assessing the artistic merit of your pieces. So the rounds are not competitive in the sense that all eligible applicants will be offered associate representation. I don't have limited spots to give away. Everyone who's eligible will get an offer. Given this, I'm more than happy to chat to you about your application while it's in process. If you're not sure about any of it or you want feedback on whether a work meets the requirements. The application is going to ask you to provide details about 4 original works. Each of these need to meet 2 of the eligibility criteria listed in our representation policy. And I'm going to go through that full list in a moment. A work here is defined as a single complete musical composition or expression. So this includes music with movements or subworks like song cycles. In the individual movements or subworks should not be used as separate works for the purposes of this application. Installations, improvised music, instances of improvised music and film scores are also understood here as works and can be used in the application. Arrangements are not accepted as part of the application. We're looking for 4 original works for this part. Collaborative works are accepted. Collaborators that frequently create work together will still need to apply separately, but you can use exactly the same collaborative works in the application if they're eligible. You will be asked to provide evidence of the work meeting the criteria, and I will suggest some kinds of evidence that you might use as we go through the criteria list. The key thing about the evidence for all the criteria is that you want it to contain the work name and your name. So an example would be you want a program that lists the works and the composers out rather than a flyer that just shows that a concert has taken place. It's worth noting here also that you will not be limited to only lodging these 4 works when you become represented. This does not these 4 works do not need to represent everything that you do as an artist. Focus on using works that just clearly meet 2 of the criteria and have evidence that you can provide. Once you are an associate artist, you can lodge any of your works that meet just 1 of the criteria from the same list in the representation policy. So the criteria itself, this list is in our representation policy. It's section 1.3 on page 4 if you happen to have the document with you at the moment and you're wanting to follow along. Number 1, the work has received a public performance, broadcast, presentation, or installation by a professional performer, ensemble, broadcaster, or curator. So this is really that public presentation of the work. Professional performer in this context means that they were paid an appropriate professional fee, or they did the work as part of their profession as a performer. We will also accept here established community ensembles and youth orchestras. If you are not sure about this criteria at all, please just ask. A specific performance event can only be used as evidence for 1 of the 4 works. So if a particular event features 3 of your works, you can only use it as criteria as evidence for 1 of the works in your application. I will also note that this criteria was one of the ones that got revised in the most recent policy update last year. So previously, this performance needed to be independent of the artist, but we updated it because we recognize that many artists perform their own works, particularly in areas like jazz and improvisation and experimental music. I do want to draw your attention to this criteria not just being for a traditional performance. So installations of sound artworks will fit in this criteria. If your music is purely in a recorded format, then something like a radio broadcast will also fit here. Evidence for this criteria might be a scan of a program. It might be a link to an event listing online or a review of the performance that talks about what the pieces specifically were. You can put a link to the AMC calendar here. I will totally accept an AMC calendar listing. It is actually a great way because we do list out all of the works if you're represented or not represented, and we check the ticketing links on event websites when we document the calendar entry. So it's already kind of been checked. This is also, I will relate this. Don't rely on an event listing staying online forever. Contrary to the saying, the internet is not always forever. If there is a review or an event listing, save it as a PDF for later. So this is another reason, a great reason to use the AMC calendar to document your performances before you're represented, because those entries will not go away. Number 2, the work has been financially commissioned. This is a pretty straightforward one. Someone has paid you money to create a piece of music. The same commissioning body can only be used as evidence for 1 of the 4 works. So if you've received a couple of commissions from the same individual or ensemble, you can only use it. You can only use that for one of those works. Evidence for this might be a copy of an invoice or an agreement, but often programs and articles also mention it being a commission. If a work has been performed and commissioned by an ensemble and there's a program that details that, you can use it as the evidence for both criteria 1 and criteria 2. The work has been produced as a result of a competitive and open grant, residency, or fellowship. This is also where something like a composer development program would fit. I think that there was a question about that in the registration questions. They fit in this criteria rather than the financial commission. Composer programs are often a great one to use in your associate application because they fit this criteria and they usually involve a performance as well. So that work will have met 2 criteria. The same grant, fellowship, or residency can only be used as evidence for one of the 4 works. Evidence might be offer letters, links to websites for the relevant fellowship or residency, often kind of list recipients and kind of information about what was created. Sometimes programs will also list that the work was produced with the support of a funding body like Creative Australia. All good options for evidence. Number 4, the work has been released on a commercial recording or as interactive media. So a recording release, the work is available either on a physical CD, available to purchase digitally, or available to stream on streaming platforms such as Spotify and Apple Music. We're really looking for a commercial release here rather than the recording just being on SoundCloud or YouTube. The release can be an independent self-release, so things like it being available on Bandcamp, for example, will meet this criteria. The interactive media part of this criteria mainly refers to video games, but it is a little bit broader to allow for interactive experimental media. Again, the same release can only be used as evidence for one of the works. So if an album features 3 of your works, you can only use it as evidence for one. Evidence would be things like a link to the release, scan of a CD liner, that kind of thing that lists your work and you as the composer. The work has been, number 5, the work has been published as sheet music or as a media publication by an established publisher. Media publication in this context means that it's been published as part of research. So it's not referring to like a review article of a performance, for example. The same publication, again, can only be used as evidence for one of your 4 works. So if a published book features 3 of your works, you can only use it for one. The evidence for this might be links to the publisher's website where the sheet music is available or a catalogue that lists your work. Number 6, the work has been the winner or a finalist of an established and open competition, prize, or award. We will also accept places that are similar to finalists, so highly commended, for example. And established here means running for at least 5 years, or it's held by an organization that has been running for at least 5 years. These details, these clarifications, by the way, they're in the representation policy under each of the criteria. So don't think you need to remember all of these small clarifications. If you want to go back to them at any point, they're in that policy. Evidence for this criteria might be a letter about you winning the award or a link to somewhere that documents the award recipients and the work online. Number 7, the work has been included on an established state or national level examination syllabus. This refers to things like AMC or Trinity. And the evidence for this is going to be pretty straightforward because the syllabuses usually pretty clearly list out a piece and the composer name. So just a copy of the relevant syllabus or the relevant part of that syllabus. Number 8, the work has been synchronized in a collaborative production, which itself meets one of the other criteria. So a collaborative production in this case means things like theatre, film, television, multimedia, video games, and other things like that. And it meeting another criteria is really basically it's seen the light of day. So it generally means things like a theatre production has had a public performance, which is criteria 1. The film has had a public screening or broadcast or release, again, criteria 1. The video game has been released, which is criteria 4. The multimedia artwork has had a public installation, criteria 1. So this is going to be, in terms of evidence, it might be links to event listings for a theatre production that list you as the person that made the music, a film credits, similarly for video game credits, anything that will list you as the person that created the music for it. Number 9, the work has been used in an educational context. So this is a deliberately broad category because educational contexts are broad. It could mean that the work is taught or performed in schools. It's used in education programs. It's used as a set piece in a competition. It's presented at an educational conference or a reading day. Evidence for this criteria is going to hugely vary depending on the context, but something like a short support letter from someone involved might be an option here if there isn't clear documentation that already exists about the use of your music here. So that's our 9 criteria. As a quick reminder, in your application, each of your works needs to fulfill 2 of these criteria. Once you are an associate artist with AMC, a work only needs to meet 1 of these criteria in order to be included in the AMC catalogue. And at that point, once you are an associate artist, the restrictions like something only being used as evidence for 1 of the works, that is purely for the application. So you can document all of the works that were released on a CD or published in a sheet music book. You can submit works that were commissioned by the same party, etc. So the last thing before we go into some questions, I really want to emphasize that you can always chat to me about your application during this process. If you're not sure how your works fit into these 9 criteria, if you think that they might just be on the edge, I am more than happy to give feedback. I both am the person you will talk to, but I am also the person that will be assessing the applications, and I will be talking to you once offers go out. So you are talking to the same person throughout the process, and I will have that context of who you are and what your works are. We really do want you to be able to put your best foot forward. We are here to support art music creators. If I need clarification on any of the information or the evidence that you have provided, I will follow up with you. If you're not successful in a round, I will let you know what's missing, and you can just reapply the 2nd round and a 3rd round if it's needed. You don't just get 1 shot at this, basically. If you are not sure if you're ready, I encourage you to just go ahead and make an application so that we can both see where you're up to. These are my details on the screen. Best way to get to me is my email. My direct phone line is here as well, but I will just quickly note that I work part-time with AMC, so I might not always be available to answer the phone. But like I said, it is my direct line, so you can leave a voicemail, and I will call you back once I am online.